Before we get into the video, I need you to listen very closely to this introduction. Don't worry about the rest of the video. I think the entire presentation is important, but this 1 minute is a must. I care about you and your families. Of the recent economic developments, I have a lot of heartburn. From the Fed's digital coin to the Department of Labor quietly altering your retirement funds. And now, ladies and gentlemen, food supply and potential starvation. Think globally, think the Netherlands. So, all right, we are on the verge of making Mao's 5-year plan look like child's play. So if you control the money, you control the people. But if you control the food, you control the world and the people on a greater scale. As Henry Kissinger said, control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control people. We will control food seed to fork. That is the WEF, World Economic Forum's plan. Wake up, people. Think. Stop drinking. Stop watching football. Playing video games. Stop listening to music while you work out. Real fitness freaks are about the mind-body connection. Don't bring your phone to the gym. On that note, turn off your phone at night. Read. Study. Talk to your community. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. JP, Jerome Powell said, we have no business plan going into 2023. The Fed is winging it, baby. But most of the FOMC believe that only 2 or more rate hikes are in the works. And then it's back to flooding the market with easy money. The printing presses are ready to go. The Fed, Powell admits, I couldn't believe it. I almost fell over. He said, I don't know what we're going to do in 2023. I don't have a plan except coffee and Danish is ready to go. Isn't that just wonderful going into this holiday season? The Federal Reserve's Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC, on Wednesday announced it will raise the target federal funds rate, and I talked about this, by 50 basis points, bringing the target rate to 4.5%. There's some other developments that happened last few days. So Wednesday's rate hike followed 4 hikes in a row of 75 basis points and is the smallest rate hike since March. So according to the FOMC's press release, the committee voted, unanimously for the half-point hike, pointing out that price inflation remains elevated, while also, I think wrongly placing the blame, and people are saying this now, and I already knew this, they're placing the blame, for a year of 7-point plus price inflation on supply and demand imbalances related to the pandemic. Pandemic's over. And of course, the Russia war. Remember, they were saying it was transitory. Before the Russia war, we had inflation way before the Russian war. But let's blame it on Russia, Ukraine. Please. That's been proven wrong and debunked. So the 50 basis point increase has been predicted by many finance pundits following Tuesday's, print of the 7.1% CPI inflation rate. It's higher. The reasoning is that since price inflation eased somewhat in November from June's high of 9.1%, that would mean the Fed would be less aggressive with rate hikes. When you analyze the real inflation, it's higher, folks. So this proved to be true, although it was clear from Powell's press conference that the Fed is still at least attempting to put on that tough guy face. They're trying to be hawkish and send the message that we're tough, we got it under control. They plan to keep hiking rates and otherwise embracing restrictive monetary policy. So, solid reasoning to think that the Fed will cave to pressure in 2023. They got the word the printing presses are oiled and ready. A long way to go is a rather subjective measure. However, the FOMC's summary of economic projections, the SEP, show that most members of the committee believe the target policy rate will peak at 5.5% or less in 2023 and then fall back below 5% in 2024. It's going to be a lean year in 2023. That's the takeaway. They're at least admitting that. In other words, most of the FOMC believe only 2 more hikes of 50 basis points are going to be needed to solve this problem. At most. That's it. 2 more. No more. No more. And then the FOMC would then get back to cutting the target rate yet again by mid-2023. So while Powell's tone was hawkish, tough guy, the committee gave many reasons to look for a return to Fed easing, just a few months away. A few more months and we'll turn on the printers again. Don't worry. Indeed, market indicators suggested that markets are skeptical of the Fed's hawkish bluff based on the transitory situation where they blatantly lied for political purposes. These people aren't stupid. So bond prices, headed up, yields went down in the wake of Powell's press conference. That's all the data from Bloomberg. And from my internal conversations and listen to what I hear on conference calls, the market's not buying the Fed's increasingly hawkish position based on their history and precedent that they're going to raise rates to a higher than expected level and then keep them there. The market clearly thinks inflation is going to be on a much more desirable path than the Fed is anticipating. So we'll have to see about that. Of course, a more desirable path for price inflation is exactly what we should expect when economic indicators point to recession as they do now. 10 plus times since World War II, we've had 2 consecutive quarters of growth. They've always been a recession. We've had 2 consecutive quarters of growth. We are in a recession. Don't let anyone tell you differently. So right now, with savings rates plummeting for Americans, disposable income disappearing, credit card debt soaring, real wages falling, and an inverted yield curve, you're going to tell me we're not in recession? And then there's reason to expect falling economic activity in 2023, and with that, slowing price growth. After all, even the Fed's SEP prediction for economic growth in both 2022 and 2023 is a joke. It's 0.5%. Don't get your news from CNN or Fox. Get it right here, because the growth is going to be zero. It's going to be a lean year. Given that the Fed virtually always takes a rosy view of the economy, a bunch of phonies, this might as well be an admission of an ongoing de facto recession. It's ongoing. They don't want to scare you. So unemployment lags the interest rates. Moreover, we have yet to see the efforts of the end of the ultra easy money boom playing out in real time. We live in an economy that is increasingly dependent on constant new infusions of fiat money. Just print. And once that even slows just a little bit, we should expect, unemployment to go up. And we have millions of jobs in the tech sector lost. But there's no reason to expect to see rising unemployment in the early phase of the Fed tightening cycle. If you look at history, history does show that rising unemployment tends to come months after the Fed ends the tightening and reverts to a loosening cycle. We can see this in the delays between peak funds rates and peaking unemployment rates. If you look some precedent, if you look lead up to the recession in the early 90s, the federal funds rate started going down again in June 1989, but unemployment did not peak until the summer of 1992. Similarly, the federal funds rate began to fall in late 2000, but unemployment in the dot-com bust did not, peak until the summer of 2003. Like I said, we have millions of tech jobs lost now. Hospitality sector jobs went up. Those are, part-time jobs went up. Those are, $15, $20 hour jobs. 6-figure jobs have been lost in this market over the last 6 months, and more jobs will be lost next year. So a return to the Fed's lowering rates hardly means the economy is out of the woods, and this uncertainty reminds us that the Fed is winging it when it comes to what it will do next. So in recent months, the FOMC has eliminated forward guidance as it has been forced to face the reality it was very wrong about what, folks? Transitory inflation. They got political. They knew Yellen is extremely brilliant. They knew what was going on. They got political and they listened to it. So the Fed had promised for months that it had a secret plan that would make everything turn out well. But nowadays, the Fed no longer even attempts to keep up, the pretense that it has the situation well in hand. They're just outright saying, hey, we don't know what we're going to do. This guy at that conference, there's no recession on the horizon. The Fed, it's going to be a favorable ending. They didn't give like things are going to work out. He basically said, I don't know what we'll do at the next meeting. And I don't think anyone knows if we're going to have a recession. So he's still saying that. He even said at one point, this is the best we can do right now. He doesn't want to admit the obvious because they don't want to scare people. You know, Wall Street, because they got unlimited money, right? They're planning for somewhat of a soft landing. Markets continue. If you're seeing this right now, they continue to think that the soft landing is coming, and this is why there is relatively little alarm over the Fed's predictions of weak economic fundamentals next year and continued inflation. So I think, you know, the insiders believe they know those presses are going to be turned on. It's a lot of wishful thinking. They got some inside baseball on that, you know, saying it's going to be a mild recession at worst. You know, we'll bring the inflation down, and then the Fed can return to pumping out a wave of easy money. So, well, you know, the first quarter, another rate hike, and then we'll bring that inflation down a little bit. We'll cook the books, and then let's get those printing presses going. All they got is hope. A few weeks, few months in early 2023, and then easy money will bring all the usual asset price inflation roaring back. This is what the banker and investor classes want, not to mention Biden and the White House so desperately want and need. So what about the Fed's portfolio? If you look at their portfolio and what they've done, you know, the Fed continues to provide Wall Street with good reason to believe that there will be no sustained monetary tightening. For this, we need only look to the lack of action on the Fed's portfolio. You know, so for months, the FOMC has repeatedly stated that it is significantly reducing its balance sheet. Yet in the 6 months since the balance sheet peaked, it has been reduced by only 3.4%, ladies and gentlemen. And that's of the 8.9 trillion. Let me say that again, 8.9 trillion. So some people would say, well, that's indeed significant in that it is not zero, but it is hardly points to aggressive tightening, folks, on the part of the Fed. And they can't do it. They can't, because the Fed knows, you know, that any sizable reduction in the balance sheet would cause government bond yields to soar. And that would be disastrous for federal debt obligations. And you know what? Washington, K Street won't let the Fed do that. They know that, and they won't. So let me put a bow on this. In any case, the money for the working man has dried up in the USA. Low interest rates can bring back the party, ladies and gentlemen, for just a little while. And they want to bring back the party in 2023, maybe the end of Q1. I don't know the future. I try to predict. I don't have a crystal ball, but here's a likely one. Something will break for the too big to fail big enterprises. No one cares for the little guy anymore or gal, but when the derivative debts roll over, then maybe half the world going bankrupt. Why? To service debt in the rollover will cost too much in a dead global economy. The rollovers sometime next year. So what to do? Maybe zero interest rates and loads of free money again falling from the sky, you know, to the connected mafia. That mafia will stack everything of solid value like metals, commodities, you know, gold, elect, get all that for themselves. Mafia, you know, easy money, they'll buy it all up. Mafia figures out, you know, out of a way to, you know, go bankrupt and keep companies and stack commodities, elect, then buy up the world afterward. That's what they're doing. They're buying up the world with the easy money. Something like that, you know. So for the common man, you don't have that kind of rich mafia. You know, you can't buy off the courts and government to keep your bankrupted companies, you know, going. You know, you must get rid of debt. Then maybe, you know, able to keep a roof over your head, have gardens and low bills. You know, you got to have a business of some sort. Laid off from a job, you're done. So the next low interest rate party will last for about 2 years. That's my opinion. Then you'll have the greatest depression ever. Get secure savings. Be out of debt right now. Right? Ready for low income for a very long time. Maybe 5 to 10 years. Maybe longer. Remember third world republics? Never recover to first world status. This is a banana republic. We're on the verge right now in the United States. In third world republics, the best chance for long-term survival is having some kind of needed small business or get out to a better country. As the communists do their thing, everyone will try to escape at some point, ladies and gentlemen. Don't get trapped inside a communist area, as communists always build walls to keep the people inside their wonderful utopia. I don't want to sound bleak. There's a little tongue-in-cheek in that, but it's not too far off. If you study this stuff and you study the global economies and what China is doing, what other countries, and what happened in Sri Lanka, what's going on in Argentina. Do you see? I mean, this is my opening. If you lasted this long, I wanted to get that across in the opening, what's going on. And it's about the food supply and the starvation in the world. Massive starvation is going on right now. When you mess up the supply chain in the first world, it devastates the third world. And that's done by design. And what's going on in the Netherlands, the most productive farmers in the world. I'm seeing this stuff, and I'm just trying to get it out there and make a difference. And I'm just imploring you and begging you to read and study this, because this bow that I just put on this the end, it seems kind of funny, some of it, but it's not. It's not. And take care of your families. Have a great holiday season, and take care.